Everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. Last night ended up being a crazy turn of events as we received a big bomber, I guess, from Fabrizio Romano in regards to foreign vets agreeing a deal to join Liverpool now. Apparently, there will be a medical taking place, I think, tomorrow, and then hopefully we'll get some sort of announcement, maybe via Flow Friday. Who knows? But back to normal scheduling as we were supposed to do the show today. So let's crack on and discuss a player that we have been strongly linked with in the past few weeks, and that is Lyon's Starboy in the name of Malick Fofana. Now, Malick Fofana is a 20-year-old Belgium international. He's only got one cap to his name. In terms of where he plays on the pitch, he's predominantly a left winger that can play on the right hand side and can even play up top if required. In terms of his stats last season, 41 appearances, 11 goals, 6 assists. So not very high in terms of the output there. 17 GA in 41 games. So 1 and 2 in terms of contribution, or 1 and 2.5. It would be just above. So not the best in terms of his ratio, but we'll give him that benefit of the doubt that he is a young player. In terms of the league, he played 29 times, 5 goals, 4 assists. So yeah, not the best ratio if I'm being brutally honest, but it's not all about stats and numbers and all that sort of stuff. You do have to view the player and judge a player based on the eye test as well. So in terms of style of play, very quick player, not lightning quick. I wouldn't say he's like Frimpong, for example, but he is very quick on the ball. One thing that I like about his play is that when he receives a pass, he doesn't always control it. He's very smart in terms of his surroundings, and he'll just either dummy the ball and go past the fullback or let the ball roll and somehow just get past the player at the time. So for me, that's a very unique skill set that he has there. Not a lot of players can execute that because you need to have good awareness around you. Pretty much need to have eyes on the back of your head, and he does have that ability. In terms of his strengths, I feel like he's a good dribbler of the ball. Not a player that is going to do any flicks and tricks or anything to that nature, but he's very calculated in his movement. Uh, can overplay a little bit, but when you're a young winger, that can be a common thing to see. But very good on in terms of on the ball. Tactically, he does like to drift inside, but I have seen him in games where he's actually, used his left foot for crossing. So he's definitely multifunctional in that aspect, not just very one-dimensional. He can go on the outside as well as the inside if required. Weakness, I think, due to his stature, it physicality will be a big talking point. It will be a question mark in regards to his adaptability to the Premier League if this move was to take place. But I feel like, with certain players, they don't need to go toe to toe against their opponent. It can be done in a very smart manner where don't use your body weight to fend off a player. Use your awareness, use your movement, use the space, and exploit those sort of areas rather than trying to out fight in a physical battle with a defender. Which most of the times you will probably lose out on anyway. So for me, that's probably a slight concern if he was to join Liverpool, but I do feel like there's a very talented player there and someone that could really, light up the Premier League. But it'll be interesting to see, if this has any legs. Um, with this rumor. I also know with Fofana, he was the player that pretty much replaced Barcola in the team. For me, Barcola is probably on a different league in comparison to Fofana. I think they're similar age as well. But we can discuss Barcola probably another time. Now, the big question is Fofana good enough to walk into the first team? My answer would be no. I don't think he is good enough to displace Gakpo, and if Diaz, was around, then he certainly wouldn't displace Diaz either. In fact, I actually see him being a replacement for Diaz if Fofana was to be signed. he wouldn't be signed, if no one departed the club, in my opinion. So no, I don't think he would be a shoo-in in our starting lineup, but I do feel like he can provide cover and depth for that left wing position. So, if Diaz was to leave, then it would probably be Cody Gakpo. So that leaves the line, and Luis Diaz, being sold to, wherever he ends up, whether it's Saudi or Barcelona, remains to be seen. But I do feel like he's a player that can play in different positions, which we can uh, discuss very, very shortly. But before we do, just see a couple of comments here. Um, BBW34 says Chris Wood in terms of the player suggestion. Not for me. I do like him. I do think he's a good striker, but not for Liverpool, unfortunately. But big up yourself for your comment there. And Kieran says, "Evening, everyone. Big up, Kieran. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in as well." Now, let's see in terms of how Fofana would fit into this Liverpool team. So we'll present him in our sort of traditional 4-2-3-1 formation. I've placed him in the lineup because we'll see if the dynamics would work if he was to start in the team. And in this formation, it certainly can. I think with us playing this traditional 4-2-3-1 formation, it allows him to be the wide player. But we've got Kirkers who will be charging down the left hand side. Fofana does have the ability to cut inside and can be very effective around this position. I've seen him score quite a few goals in that range. So it's something where he's not just an out winger. He can be very smart. He can move between the lines and try and find himself in a slightly left-sided central position and either thread a through ball or take a shot from distance. So he does have that capability in his locker, and I feel like he's a player that will predominantly occupy that left-hand side. He can play on the right wing, so if we need to rest Mohamed Salah or if he's not available, then Fofana can easily play on that right-hand side and provide adequate quality um, for Liverpool against a strong opposition, for example. So in this lineup, I feel like I'll be honest with you. I think it would be a little bit underwhelming if he was the starter in this team. But I do feel like he's a player that's very raw and could definitely light up the league. You know, given time to develop. Because one good thing about if this was to become a reality is that he wouldn't be required or wouldn't be expected to play as the main man on that left wing. It would be Gakpo, and he would bide his time and find games here and there. And then once he's got accustomed to the way we play and he gets accustomed to the physicality and intensity of the Premier League, then we'll see him in the first team action a little bit more. But just in terms of the dynamics, it can work. With McAllister behind him, he'll be able to thread through balls to him, and he can be very effective on that side. So yeah, on paper, it can definitely work out. Now, if we were to play a slightly different shape in a 4-3-3, um, that might suit him as well. It's probably a little bit different for him in terms of the midfield behind him, because he'll have McAllister and Gravenberch. Gravenberch will play a bit more central. I think he'll probably drop deep at times, if I'm being honest. But his role in terms of Fofana doesn't really change. The only thing is that with Verts, if this was the formation, I haven't placed a new striker in this lineup, but if Verts was this, number 9, he wouldn't play as an out and out because it's not his traditional or it's not his natural position. So he'll tend to drop deep, and that will allow the likes of Salah and Fofana to come and play. And that brings me to excuse me, the next position where this is the vision that I see Liverpool playing next season. I think we're going to play a 4-4-2 down. I just feel like it's got the right balance and it allows everyone to play in their natural position. Now, if Fofana was to play, in a two-man strike force, I would have concerns in that. Um, even even if he wasn't a starter, for him to come into this team alongside Salah, I don't think he has enough in his locker to be a regular goal scorer. He does have a good finish on him, but I don't think he has the movement or the understanding of how to find himself in goal scoring positions or find himself in tight areas where defenses will be you know presenting a low block against Liverpool, and it's going to be on a regular occurrence. So I think this would not suit his skill set. I think he would be better playing in a front three rather than a front two. But of course, when you got the likes of Verts, Verts will be able to provide that creativity for him. But my concern would be his end product in terms of being able to finish on chances there. So good player. I do think he's a player with great potential, but you have to put context into the situation as well. He would be coming into the club to replace Luis Diaz, and I don't think he's quite at that level to do it. We do have a senior player in Gakpo who will be playing week in, week out, but I want more established players in our team. So that's my thoughts on Fofana. So feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. Just going to go through some of the comments here. Abdul Rahim says, Hi, Ozzy in chat. How are you? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your comment there, Abdul. I'm doing good. I hope you are well. Um, Double D says, Good call on the probable formation. This is what I'm envisioning for next season. I feel like this position or this formation allows everyone to play in a natural position. We've got Verts playing in that number 10 role, you know, having the freedom to roam around the pitch and be effective in that final third. Salah gets to play a bit more centrally and can be more of a focal point and try and get, as many goals as possible. Obviously, I've got Fofana on the screen, but I would like it to be a proper striker alongside him. And you've got McAllister playing on the left side. You've got Gravenberch playing in a single pivot, which we haven't seen him do too much in a Liverpool shirt, but I believe he has that ability to, you know, present himself in that position, but also be effective. He will probably split the defense where he's a bit more central, and it allows Van Dijk to be on the left and on the right. Let me just present it so it makes a bit more sense. So I can see Gravenberch forming more of that kind of formation where he drops a little, pretty much a sweeper in his position. And then you've got the likes of Szoboszlai and McAllister slightly deeper than normal, and they'll be the engine of this midfield. And you've got Verts roaming around here, and then you've got Frimpong, Kerkez charging down that byline, and then you've got two strikers, or you've got a player in Salah who will be playing more as an inside forward, and then you have your real striker there, your gunman, on the end of things. So that's how I'm envisioning, the setup for Liverpool next season, especially with the type of profiles that we're signing. I feel like it could be what we see under Arne Slot next season. So exciting times. Nonetheless, I could be wrong. It would also depend on the type of striker that we sign as well. That will give us a better sort of indication in terms of how the team will set up and how we'll be um, presented going forward. So let's see. But that's just my idea in terms of how I see Liverpool playing. Um, James of the comment says it's interesting that Fofana can play on the right because I feel like we need more cover for Salah. He hasn't played there on a number of occasions, but from brief highlights that I've seen of him, he can play that role. He can be quite effective, and he doesn't look out of place. It does seem quite natural for him, of course, being a right-footed player. But in this day and age, just because you're right-footed and you play on the right side, it doesn't mean that you're effective on the flanks. But he is. He's very creative. He knows how to time his run and when to dribble, when to cut back a pass. So I feel like it's a position that he could definitely cover for Mohamed Salah. But then, we've got Diaz who can do that as well. So, if we were to sign a Luis Diaz replacement, I'm expecting that player to also, put in a shift on that right hand side if required. So it's going to be interesting in terms of, is Fofana a genuine interest? Um, Remains to be seen. But what I would say in terms of my verdict, um, overall, if the club do want to sign a replacement for Luis Diaz, but don't want to go for an established replacement, maybe due to the finance involved, or maybe they feel like Liverpool needs to sign a young profile rather than someone that's similar age to Diaz. Then Fofana, I think, would be around the top of that list. He wouldn't cost too much, in my opinion. I think 25, 30 million should do the trick. Some fans will argue and say that, if we were to sign Malick Fofana, um, it could potentially block Rio and Gamora's development. Now, I do understand that sentiment, but I have to disagree with that as well. The reason I disagree is because I don't want us to be that sort of club that thinks too far ahead about a young player and then hampering their development. We all can see the ability that Ngoma has. I feel like, in due time he will be a top player for Liverpool, but he's not ready for the first team at this stage, in my opinion. So you have to strengthen the squad for the current season rather than forecasting, what a player could do for years to come. And I'm not, trying to put any negative energy out there, but if he doesn't live up to his potential, then you've kind of messed up the team setup um, in current format, but also for the short term as well. So for me, I would say, you have to look at the current squad. Where do we need to strengthen? And if there's players that are departing, we have to replace them with adequate quality, and not to think too much about hampering a player's development. Because if Rio Ngoma is that guy, Gakpo and the other left winger will have to sit down and he will be in the first team. It's as simple as that. You didn't see Barcelona do that with Yamal. Everyone knew there was a young kid coming through the ranks that was going to really, tear it up and, make a big name for himself. Because I heard about him before he broke into the first team. You didn't see them say, "Oh, we're not going to sign Rafinha or Ferran Torres." They still bought the players that they needed. Of course, those players are not playing as many games as they would like to. Rafinha predominantly played on the right side for Leeds. He's playing on the left wing, and I feel like that role really suits him as well. So, in hindsight, it actually worked out for Rafinha. And now you've got Yamal, who's cemented that right wing in that team. He's only 17 years of age. So you can't think about hampering someone's progress and stop, from the club from signing players. You've got to do both. You've got to sign the adequate players, and then if you've got a young star coming through, give him a chance. And if he really takes his opportunity and really hits the nail and hits the ground running, then everyone deserves to be in a team based on merit, based on what they do on training, and based on what they do on the pitch. So I disagree when people say that, we shouldn't sign players because it will hamper a young player's progress. He's still very raw. He's not in the first team as of yet. So I don't think that's how football works. You have to do things for right now and the short term and then the medium term as well. Kieran's question is Fofana the Belgium squad? He's only got one cap to his name, so I don't know if he's in the current squad, but he is, a player that's highly regarded in Belgium. So expect to see him making more caps for the national team. If not, how experienced is he on the international stage? Yeah, he's only got one cap to his name, so he's not very experienced at that level. But he's only 20 years of age, so he's got plenty of time to break into that team. And they're already going through a sort of transitional period right now with a lot of the older stars, on the verge of retirement, like Kevin De Bruyne is. Of course, he's got competition with the likes of Doku for that left wing. So I do expect him to be in the mix. Maybe a move to a team like Liverpool could, increase his chances there. But he definitely has, ability. I definitely feel like there's a talented player there. And also in regards to Fofana, if let's say Liverpool do sell Luis Diaz, I'm expecting Liverpool to get around 70 odd million for him. And if we were to sign Fofana for about 30 odd million, then you've got uh 40 million remaining in your sort of budget there, and you can use those funds on another player. So that would be regarded as astute business, but I think we still have to be smart. We still have to be calculated in what we do because selling Diaz, I don't think is going to be, a easy fix. I think it's going to be where Liverpool need to invest money and find a player of his ilk or of his quality, and it's probably going to cost us the same amount of money that we're going to receive. The only difference is that maybe Liverpool want to get a younger profile. There are players out there available, the likes of Rodrigo that, could certainly fit the bill there. So that would be the caliber of player that I would want in the team. But whether that happens remains to be seen. But also in terms of Fofana, if he was to join in that sort of role, he wouldn't be the starter, in my opinion. He'll be more of a squad player, and through time and through patience and allowing him to develop fully, um, he'll then challenge for Gakpo for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. So yeah, so that's my take on Malick Fofana. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to BPW and 74. Big up to Kieran. Big up to Abdul, and big up to Double D for your comments as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming content, I will be doing a show tomorrow where I'll be playing sporting director, and I'll be presenting players I feel like Liverpool should be selling or loaning out, and also presenting players I feel like we should be bringing in, and try and paint the whole picture for the whole summer. So yeah, bit of a fun episode. So feel free to get involved in the live chat. And then on Friday we'll be doing a Liverpool transfer talk show. It could also be Florian Friday as well, so we might end up talking about him in more detail. But positive news, nonetheless. Um, Kieran said, "Good night. Thanks for the stream. Before you go, did you see Diaz's goal?" I did see Diaz's goal, and that's one of the reasons why I don't want to sell him. He has that ability in his locker. Yeah, he went past like 3, 4 players and just smashed it in the corner. What a goal it was! When he plays for Colombia, I just feel like he's a different monster there. Like he just, he becomes like a Neymar type player. Like he's just unstoppable. He does do it for Liverpool as well, but probably not as consistent as he does for Colombia. I still feel like there's a quality player there. So if we were to part ways with him, we need to sign, a full out replacement, in my opinion. So yeah, great goal. But let's see what happens. If he stays, I'll be pleased, because then I can see him scoring goals like that for Liverpool as well. So we'll see what happens with Lucho for the remaining future, and of course for the foreseeable um, season as well. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.